notice on the title, an informal call center. It's not quite like any other product out there. And that means that I think we have something that's of interest to you, but it does take a little bit of an explanation. Now, if you think about who we are, we've been in the business of answering and routing calls as well as taking messages for a long time. We have a lot of people using our systems out there, which means we get lots of feedback from customers. And that customer feedback really is what we use to direct our product in terms of whatever direction we need to go to solve whatever solutions we feel that maybe haven't been addressed out there. And as a result, we've managed to target ourselves into markets where we're recognized as the best of breed provider in a lot of these. And I think we also have maybe the most interesting product in terms of how we approach it. So if you think of when we sit down and say, well, let's make another version of software, we sort of have three separate areas that we address. We've been doing this long enough to know that what an individual worker needs compared to what the business overall needs, those are kind of two different things. Think about a mobile worker and how we're going to get calls to them and provide them messaging, as opposed to the core business that's looking for an automated attendant and maybe data access. We've been focusing on those two for years, and we have distinct feature sets that we talk about in some of our webinars. You can go see things that we do in the world of mobility and business process. But in the last few years, we've also had a third focus on teams or collaboration. Now, teams used to be something that were pretty easy to understand and handle. A team was, a group of 5 people that went down the hall and met in the conference room every now and then, and that's just not who we are in the business world anymore. And as a result, teams with mobility and the way they work, there's a lot of challenges for supplying all the things that they need. And if we look at how we approach the market, we're always focusing on a couple of areas. One is we certainly are a replacement product. As all those legacy voicemails age out, we are sort of the logical successor there. And we're very big on extending, the life cycle of the other products, because that's a great value statement, and we enjoy bringing that to customers. And we're always looking at what's going forward in terms of the migration to the cloud, the movement to IP, all of those. But at the same time, we have to take these core applications, these UC applications that we maintain, and decide where to go with those. And that's one of our biggest challenges. And this is probably one of the most interesting products we've come out with in a long time. Now, TeamQ, you're going to notice if you look at our literature and slides and go out on our website, the tagline under TeamQ varies a bit. Because we're having a little bit of a hard time nailing something where people can look at it and say, oh, well, no, I know what that is. That's an informal call center. That doesn't really speak directly to what that product means. And the reason is it's kind of unique out in the market. If you look at routing calls to multiple users in an enterprise, it started a long time ago with a hunt group or response groups and links, same general kind of concept, where I can take, I have 5 people in dispatch that are answering calls. I put a hunt group in, and basically they just grab whatever line's ringing and answer the call. And if they had the same skill set, if they're all answering the same type of calls, that would probably be okay in that size group. But if you extend that out to I have 100 people in a room doing the same thing, I have a little different interest there now. I certainly want to distribute those calls, but I also want to monitor and measure. I want to control that, so I'm going to use some contact center software. I'm going to put an ACD system in, multimedia contact center, something along those lines. And those people, they're what we call process workers. In other words, those 100 people pretty much do the same thing. Call is presented, they answer, they go through whatever the script is, whatever the function is, they hang up, maybe they go into wrap-up time, and they jump to the next call. And the goal here is to really monitor, productivity. Let's squeeze 20 seconds off those calls if we can. So at those two ends of the spectrums, you sort of have two groups. But there's another group of people that a hunt group just isn't sufficient, but a contact center doesn't really meet the needs either, and they're kind of struggling around. And that's what we built TeamQ for. We're going to kind of show you how we've identified those and talk about what TeamQ brings to those that's different than either a hunt group or a contact center. We don't replace hunt groups at the low end. People want hunt groups. They'll always need them. We don't replace full-blown contact centers. That 100 people in a room doing the same thing, that's not our target market. And where we start is we kind of look at that group and what are they? A task worker or a knowledge worker? Now, task workers are the ones that are in the ACD queues generally, right? They're the same kind of process, answer a call, go to a terminal, have an interaction with the caller, move on. They don't have any personal workflow. They simply work the process. But there's other groups, knowledge workers, that are different, that do have personal workflow. They're still answering calls. They probably have different skill sets than the other people within their groups, and every call can be a little different. And I usually use an IT help desk to kind of talk about this concept because it's something we've all had experience with. In an IT help desk, there's multiple people with disparate skill sets kind of doing different types of things. But probably in most places, you know, the phone number to call for IT help kind of gets you in, and maybe today it's a hunt group and people are answering the phone and hollering over the cubicle, hey, somebody needs help, you know, with a Windows question on line 3, that type of thing. They've not been well taken care of. And up to now, I don't think people really knew there was a better way to do it. But we have a better way to do it. So those kind of teams where you have a separate skill set, you have personal workflow, and a call center is just not really going to fit the bill, and a hunt group's not doing all that well, I think you'll find TeamQ is a really interesting solution. So TeamQ, we call it an informal call center. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's a good place to start. It's built small. It's not for 100 agents, and you're going to see why as we look at how this works. So this is for smaller groups of up to 25 agents logged in to one queue at a time. You can have up to 50 teams on the system, but it really is for a kind of a smaller type group that's doing that disparate type of work. Now we do push model, ACD, right? We can set it up so that when an agent gets off the phone, we'll push the oldest call to them, and we can do that, but that's not really our value proposition. What makes us good is we do something new called pull model call distribution. With pull model, we're going to let the agents pull the appropriate calls to them. If you think about this, this is sort of a skills-based routing pull model call management system. And we'll show you what that means as we go through the different pieces. But the agents are really going to have a lot of power. Now, we still have reports and supervisor screens and all of that, but this is just not really for that high productivity, cut 10 seconds out of the call center type of solution. And what we do here is a little bit different. And we'll show you that difference starting with the caller experience. You can get an idea of what we're going to do, because the first thing we're going to do when a caller answers is capture their ANI number, and then we're going to be able to use that ANI number to do some very interesting things. But then we're going to run a script for the caller. We're going to say, hello, welcome to the IT help desk, and just to get them started. And then we're going to prompt them with questions. What is your account number? What is your customer number? What is your contract number? What is your zip code? Whatever numeric import we want to get, we can have up to 2 numeric questions. And then we also can have menus. So what is your operating system? You know, press 1 for Linux, 2 for Windows. For Windows support, press 1. For Microsoft Office support, press 2. We now start gathering this metadata about the call, and the customer is going to go through these menus, and they're going to generate this information. And as soon as they're done, we now have all this metadata. So we have an account number. And account number is okay. We're going to be able to do some things with it that makes it a little more useful than a number. We have their menu choice, and then we have their caller ID number. Now, all of this metadata on its own can simply be displayed on the screen for the agent to look at. And maybe there are some cases where, you know, if they're entering zip codes or something, people would look at those and say, oh, that's in my territory. I can take that call. But pretty much that numeric data, it needs to be moved up a step. So what we're going to do is generate some data dips. In other words, we're going to take that account number. We're going to write a little routine as part of our install services. You can buy data dips from us. We'll go into a database. I'm just showing Salesforce here, but it can be anything that has a web services interface, a COM API, any way at all that we can get into that. And we're going to push in that number, and we're going to bring back some other information. We're going to bring back the warranty status, the software version they're running on, the customer contract, the status of their maintenance contract. All of that will come back to us from that data dip, and now that can be shown on the screen, and that's much more useful to the agents. So now I have this caller. I've asked them. I know what they want. I know what we're going to do with the call. I have the option of saying your position in queue is 2, estimated wait time's 4 minutes. Now this information is really interesting, but keep in mind, in a pull model call system like this, you may not want to give them that system, because depending on what they're looking for, the oldest call might not be the next call that gets taken. When it's skills-based routing, things change a little bit. So this is an option you can turn on or not. And then we're going to go ahead and say to hold for a representative, press 1, to leave a message, press 2, or to request a callback, press 3, because we support all 3 of those options. If they hold for a representative, we're literally going to keep that call in CX, and we can play some music or a recorded commercial or whatever you want. And then at some time when the agent takes that call, we will transfer to them. If they say leave a message, we'll put them in the mailbox that's designed for that system. And if they request a callback, we'll queue that. We'll keep that record in the screen. It'll age, but we'll let that caller hang up. And then when someone takes that call, when an agent actually says take that call, we'll do the callback. And that lets you not tie up your ports, and it doesn't force people to sit there and hang on the phone. So very good options, very similar to an ACD system, but a little bit different. So now I have some callers in the queue, and this caller now says, yes, I'm going to wait as well. Now I have 3 callers in the queue looking for different things. 2 are looking for Windows support, 1 is looking for Linux support. And I have a group of agents that have differing skill sets. Now agent number 1, he's a Linux specialist. He knows Windows too, all of them know Windows. But the other 2, they don't know Linux, they're just Windows specialists. So I have these 3 people that are going to look at this queue, and they're going to look at it differently. Agents 2 and 3, as soon as they look up, they're going to go for caller number 1, because that's the oldest call in the queue. And then once they get that, the other agent can take caller number 2. But agent number 1, when they look up, even though he could take the Windows calls, because he knows he's the specialist, he's going to take caller number 3. Even that's the newest call in the queue, because he's the one that's going to do that call. So this allows the pull model, agent skills and agent knowledge based on what's displayed on the screen, let the calls be handled in a more appropriate manner than just pushing them out oldest call first. So having that metadata displayed on the screen is sort of the big difference in terms of the tools that we offer to do that. The pull method lets us more effectively handle calls to work groups where the skill set is going to be disparate for the agents. This is not a everybody's going to, everybody can answer the call and check on the order status. This is different. So I go in and I take call number 3 as the Linux specialist. I finish that call. Now I look back at the queue. There's a couple of calls in queue for Windows. I took caller 3, so he's not there anymore. Now, as a specialist, I might not always just take calls. So if I look at that queue and say, well, there's nothing but Windows calls, we have plenty of agents for those, I'm going to go work on a project. I'm going to go do some research I'm doing or something along those lines. I don't have to take a call right now. I can just keep an eye on that queue. Or maybe I took that call for Linux, and I talked to the person and I said, hey, I'm going to have to do some research. So I leave the call aging in the queue, even though the caller has hung up, and I maybe go to a remote attached to the desktop. Maybe I can go a desktop visit. I go out on the web and do some research. When I'm all done, I then terminate that call from our point of view, from the record, and I actually have all that status in there for the call as well. So we can track not only call time, but other activities, and those activities are designed by the queue manager when the queue is built. So if you think about this in terms of the big difference between this and a traditional ACD, we run a script, we gather that data, and then we have a screen. And this is really what makes the big difference. As an agent, I can look up at the screen and I can see all sorts of things. I see the calls that are there. Now in this case, this screen is monitoring 2 different queues, the orders desk and the help desk, because I can do that. I can be logged into multiple queues. And now as I sit here and look at this, there's 2 callers that are awaiting attention. There's 3 callers that are connected, and then there's a call in hold status. So the waiting connected, I can simply hit one of these. If I can do network and Windows support, I would hit the older one and then hit the take call button, and that call will be sent to me. If I do only Windows support, or only Windows support, then I have my choice of taking that one. Now the call that's on hold is interesting. Bill called in, and he's on hold for Tom. And the way that probably happened is Tom, being a good tech support agent, when Bill called the first time a few minutes ago, said, reset your system and see if that fixes it. And of course, that never does fix it. But Bill did that, and Bill called back. And Tom looked at the queue when Bill's call came back in and said, you know what, it only makes sense for me to have that call. So he hit that call and hit the hold button. And now that'll be his next call. So besides taking the correct call, agents have a lot of control over other things. An agent can hold a call if they can tell from that metadata that really is a call they should handle. They can send a call straight to voicemail. Maybe I'm in charge of this queue and I look down and at a minute 13 on holding, I'm starting to worry my SLAs are going to look bad. So I highlight that call from Martin and I hit redirect and I send it to the priority queue, or I send it to somebody's extension. So we actually have a lot of ways to control the queue visually based on what's going on in the queue and the information we gathered from the caller. And that's the call queue screen you see there. You also see there's an agent status tab, and that means not only can I look at the calls that are active and the agents that are on calls, I can see all the agents that are logged in, so I have a good idea what's going on. So I flip to this screen and I can now see I have somebody on break. I can see the people that are on a call. Somebody's in wrap-up mode. I've got some idle people. I've got Pat who's monitoring the queue, meaning he can see everything, but no one can send calls to him. And I now have a much better idea. Maybe I'm thinking of going on break, and I can look at this and say, well, I'm going to wait till Carol comes back from break. So really, really good screens for the agents and the supervisors. And then, of course, the supervisors have the more standard management tools. So we have log files that they can go to. If they're looking at what's happened in the queue in the last couple of hours, they can easily run some logs. They can see the agent logs. They can see the various other pieces. And it's kind of nice to look at the queue log. If you're just kind of getting an idea what's going on in the queue recently, you can see the last calls that came in, what their status is, things along those lines. But can't have an ACD product without a good reporting package. So for after the fact information, we have a great reporting package. It has 13 standard reports. All these reports are available. They're actually in the Microsoft SQL report engine, meaning not only can you run our reports, but you can connect directly to that and create your own reports and do automated processing and all those other things that Microsoft package enables. And the reports are exactly what you'd expect. There's detail activity followed by summaries. So if you think of what we're offering here, it's not really, a direct, let's get rid of our call center and use this. It's more like, the way this usually works is when we talk to customers, somewhere around here they say, you know what, I can think of this group where they have a problem handling calls and this would be great for them. There's no names for those kind of groups yet, so we tend to have to hunt them out. The architecture is another thing that makes this a very successful product for us right now, because like all of our applications, this is software that runs on our CXE system. You don't have to buy an extra server for TeamQ. You never buy application servers from us. We don't need a speech server. We don't need a mobile client server. Everything we do is integrated into the one application, CXE. You simply buy the licenses and turn it on. True for TeamQ. TeamQ is already sitting in your network. It's already connected to your phone system. Any phone system that we connect with, which is pretty much everything out there. I don't know currently of a system we can't integrate with, but whatever you have, then it works. There's no CTI link. There's no special circuits. Now, you may, if you end up holding lots of calls, let's say you're going to have 4 queues, and you figure during the busy time of day that there might be as many as 10 calls holding, and you don't want to have all those callback. You actually want to have them holding. Well, then we need to talk about ports. We need to talk about capacity on the CX system. But no new servers, no new kinds of connections. And basically, this is just one of those features that you turn on. And the call flow is really simple. Call comes in, we direct it to a queue. That can be direct. You can have a number, direct in a DID number that goes straight to the queue. You can have send it to the front end menu on CX. For tech support, press 1. For order entry, press 2. You can send it out to the various queues that way. Call gets answered. We run the script. Information goes on the screen. The agent basically picks the call they want, hits take call. We transfer that to them. Now it's not on the CXE system. And that's the basic architecture. And as a result, it just works anywhere. And, people say, well, I know you say that, but we have a really old Roam system. If we can integrate to it, then this application is going to work. So if we kind of go through how this would work, caller calls in, they hear, welcome to the help desk. They read back the callback number to make sure, not all that number you're calling from isn't always the number you'd want to take a callback. So as an option, we can prompt them and let them put a different callback number in. We then ask for the numeric information. In this case, because it's a help desk, I'm going to ask for an employee number. So we're only going to ask for one numeric instance in this case. For support on Windows 7, press 1. For support on Office, press 2. For network help, press 3. So we have a multiple choice question, and now we've gathered that metadata. And now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, your position in queue is 4, wait time is 45 seconds. To hold for a representative, press 1. To leave a message, press 2. And to request a callback, press 3. And once again, if they press 3, it'll say your call request has been taken. Thank you for calling. Clears that line down. And when that call gets taken by an agent, same way, they'll click on that call and say, take the call. Then we'll make the outgoing call to connect. Agents. The requirement for agents is pretty simple. They have to have a Windows workstation because they have to run our client, and they have to have a telephone number we can transfer to. Now that's not very limiting because the agent, while they certainly can work in-house off the network, assuming you have a VPN connection for home workers, they can work from home. As long as there's a telephone number that PBX can transfer the call to, we don't really care where those agents are working. So you can log in the morning at your desk and then go home and work for the afternoon and basically have the same experience. And then we talked about handling a call. Basically, you have all the options for handling a call there, and the visual aspect is what would trigger you to be interested in this. The thinking, oh yeah, I know a group where the ability to pick calls out of that queue would be important. That's kind of the key indicator. Now we have a lot of other features, a lot of interesting other features. We do a manual control of that call, right? You say take that call, and then when you're done, you hit the hang up button on our screen. It's very manual. That's how we get around needing any kind of special expensive connections. We do screen pop the same way. I'm going to ask for some numeric information. In this case, I'm going to use the employee ID. When I build that queue, if there's a screen the agents are using that can be popped by pushing information in and bringing up the relevant record, then right there in that link line, you can simply put in the string that's going to pop the screen for them. And when the agent takes the call, they right-click on that call, there's a little button, and they will get a screen pop. So once again, any application that we can communicate with, a web service, a COM API, stored procedure, any way that we can do it at all, then we can pop that screen as well. Very easy to do. And then basically that gives you the kind of opening the correct record kind of experience that a lot of people really want. So it's a different kind of application. It's definitely like a call center in that you're going to point groups of calls to groups of people. It's different than a call center in that probably if everybody in your call center does the exact same thing, you may not find this to be the solution for you. But when you have challenges in a group of people where their skill sets are different, the kind of calls they handle are different, and maybe it's by different customer groups, you know, with premium customers and normal customers, or maybe it's based on their area. You could maybe just read their area code and tell who should take the calls. Any of those kind of decision processes from a visual screen, that's a key indication. Now this is one of those screens that's kind of good news, bad news. You know, the good news is this is not an expensive application. Once you have CXE, it's very inexpensive. You do have to have the UC Connect application, and that's a little more expensive. That's I think $5,200 or something like that. And a lot of systems already have that because you're running other applications that use it. But once you have that basic enablement license, an agent license is $50, and actually I think that's $55 now, and a supervisor license I think is $275. I think that just went up recently. But regardless, in that price range, the bad news is we have people say, oh, well, you know, I have 40 agents, and the renewal of their ACD license comes up in 3 months, and it's $1,500 an agent that I have to pay annually. And you mean I can buy this software and then there's no annual fee? I'm going to move my call center over there. We're happy to have that conversation, but keep in mind we aren't exactly like a normal call center. We really are geared for that pull model. We can do a push model in some cases, but we have to be very careful. We don't really want a lot of people thinking, oh, we'll just replace our call centers with this. That's not really what it's designed for. If you really want to get an idea of how this all works and why you might consider doing it, as Ann said, we're going to send you a nice white paper that talks about informal call centers. There's not a lot of functionality out there available like this. There's not a lot of people that do this. And as far as I know, there's no one that does it as part of another UC product like we do. We're very big on adding things to that investment you're already making in our product. We've been doing this a long, long time. Our architecture is kind of the cornerstone for why we've been successful in the industry. We were built as a traditional data application back from the very beginning, meaning the three-tier model with a core engine, integration pieces, and application pieces. And that's what lets us do things like roll out something amazing like TeamQ and not have to buy any other hardware or any special kind of connections. We are the most interoperable product out there. Even our competitors don't want to have that discussion with us. We connect to everything in the telephony world, from the oldest Roam system you have out there, right straight on through if you're evaluating moving to Skype for Business. We're integrated with that as well. We do all the groupware connections. We do the IM presence connections. There's just, in the market, we're known as the people that can talk to whatever you have today, meaning whatever you have today and what you're going to move to. You might be thinking, oh, I have Exchange today, but I know next year I'm moving to Office 365. Well, we're the right person to have that conversation with. Everybody's favorite slide, questions.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Neil. We do have some questions coming in. If you have a question that you haven't already submitted, just to alert you, you may have the question box minimized. You can find it with the orange arrow up in the upper right corner. And then toward the bottom, you'll hopefully see the question box. The slides are also available for download in the handouts area. And we will also make sure you get a copy of those via email as well as the recording for this. So first question, Neil, regarding reserving ports for TeamQ, are the ports reserved for individual teams within TeamQ or for all of the teams combined? And then when, if the reserved ports are saturated, will calls overflow to general voicemail ports?
So the way that ports work on our system is we can enable certain functions on ports, but we don't generally reserve them on an application basis. So with TeamQ, you're going to bring that call in, and you're going to bring it in, and if, let's say, you only want to have 8 people holding for TeamQ, then what you would probably do is build an 8-port hunt group in your PBX and bring those in and point it to us. And when we were done answering those 8, then the overflow from the PBX would take those calls and put them somewhere else. And that somewhere else could be into CX still, into a voicemail box or something along those lines. And then you have to enable which ports are able to answer these calls and which ports are able to make outgoing calls. But there's no real, I can partition 3 ports for this group of people, I can partition 4 ports for this. It really doesn't work that way.
Okay, next question. Is the call queued with CXE or on the PBX?
The call is on hold on CXE. So in other words, we answered that call, and from the PBX point of view, we are connected. We're holding that port up between us and the PBX, and then obviously the outgoing trunk. And then that port is not queued in the sense that it's going to do anything automatically, unless you're using the push model. But it's queued in the sense that it's there and waiting, and then an agent takes it. Now, when the agent takes it, we transfer it to the phone, and we drop off. So our port is now cleared. Our port is only tied up when we answer the call and when we're holding the call. So in an environment where you're using callbacks, it's actually only held up during the script that we play. And as soon as the call answers all the questions and says they want to call back and hit that button, the port drops off then.
Okay, next. Can you push to some agents and allow others to pull?
You would do that with a queue. In other words, you can't, within one queue that everybody's logged into, some can't be push, some can't be pull. But you can build 2 queues, and you can send the calls to the one you want pushed and the other calls to the one you want pulled. Now what you can do is set up push and have the people that want to have calls pushed to them log in regular, and then have the people that don't want to have calls pushed but still want to be in the queue log in monitor mode, and they can then watch the queue and reach in and take a call when they want to, which is pretty much the same.
Okay. What happens to a call on TeamQ or other CXE auto attendants if CXE is down or offline?
So this is really the question is, what if the phone system can't get the call to us? Certainly if we're down or offline, that's one of the ways that can happen. Or if you have a 48-port CX system and all 48 ports are busy, you get the same thing. And the answers in both cases have to do with the PBX. For an example, if I had a circuit coming in, I could, with 48 slots on it, I could probably set the PBX up so when that 49th call came in, then I could do something else. And whether that's a vectoring table that sends it to an attendant, or you play an announcement on it, something along those lines. If CX is down, what happens to the call is sort of controlled by what type of integration you have. In other words, if we're down, we're kind of out of the game. Now the question is, does the phone system understand we're down? In other words, are they set up such that when they try and send us a call and we don't respond, can they detect that and route the call somewhere else? We're happy to have those calls on a one-on-one basis and talk about how that works, but it is really controlled by the phone system feature set.
Okay, another question. Would you have to buy a separate box in order to run TeamQ? Right now we have a voicemail box that we're looking to upgrade to the latest version of AVST.
So I have to be careful with this one because people ask two things all the time here, and they kind of mix these questions. You have to have CX to run TeamQ, so that's the thing we need to make. You know, if you want to buy TeamQ on its own, the way you do that is buy a complete CX system. So we don't sell this as a standalone application. That being said, if you have an older CX system, when you upgrade it to the current version, which is 8.7, all you need to do then is buy the licenses, and that system will run TeamQ.
Okay, thanks, Neil. So it looks like that actually might be wrapping up the questions, unless someone is still typing. We just want to thank you again for taking the time to join us.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.